Ancient Greece. In ancient Greece, wizards and witches lived openly among Muggles, but their power was reframed as divine. Over generations, exceptionally powerful magical figures became gods, while dangerous spellcraft was retooled as mythic punishment. Take Medusa. Wizarding schools classify her not as a monster, but as the victim of an irreversible transfigurative curse, one of the earliest recorded human-to-creature transformations. The petrification gaze aligns with advanced curse projection, later inspiring the theoretical framework behind basilisk-induced paralysis and stone-binding spells. Curses were common and socially accepted. Archaeologists have found real curse tablets from Greece, thin sheets of metal where people wrote names and magical requests. These were early jinxes used for love, revenge, protection, or competition. Magic wasn't hidden, it was normal, but dangerous. The Oracle of Delphi functioned as a seer amplifier, the fumes a magical fault line enhancing foresight at the cost of sanity and lifespan. Prophecy here became institutional, shaping wars, kings, and laws. This era also produced one of the darkest figures in wizarding history, Herpo the Foul. Active in Greece during the late classical period, Herpo pioneered forbidden experiments in soul manipulation, created the first basilisk, and laid the groundwork for Horcrux theory centuries before Voldemort. His work confirmed the Greeks' greatest fear, that magic could permanently violate nature if ethics failed. When Rome rose, Greek magic was absorbed, simplified, and weaponized. Wizarding elders withdrew from public life, making one of the earliest philosophical moves towards secrecy. Atlantis. In wizarding history, Atlantis isn't a legend, it's a classified failure. Long before recorded history, roughly 9600 BCE, according to preserved Greek-aligned chronomancy logs, Atlantis was a civilization where magic advanced faster than wisdom. Wizards and witches there abandoned wand-based discipline in favor of raw experimental spell casting, powered by ley line convergence and proto-reality manipulation. Atlantean scholars pioneered spatial compression, early forms of time dilation, and unstable reality pockets, magic so advanced it bypassed natural safeguards. Entire districts reportedly functioned inside magically folded space, centuries before extension charms were considered safe. But the cost was catastrophic. Magic began feeding on itself. The collapse wasn't natural, it was a magical implosion. A failed grand-scale containment ritual triggered cascading dimensional fractures, causing the city to sink while partially phasing out of reality. Survivors describe streets folding inward, buildings vanishing mid-spell, and reality tearing like parchment. The aftermath terrified the global wizarding community. Atlantis became the first civilization erased by magic misuse, and its remnants were sealed, studied, and feared. Much later, its lessons directly inspired the creation of the Department of Mysteries, built to research the same forces Atlantis abused, but under strict containment. To this day, Atlantean magic is considered irrecoverable, not forbidden, worse, unstable. The Pirate Era. During the golden age of piracy, circa 1650 to 1730, the wizarding world faced a unique problem: magic that couldn't be pinned to land. Pirates moved constantly, crossed borders, and vanished overnight, making them the perfect carriers of illegal magic. Many pirate crews secretly included witches and wizards. Enchanted ships used wind-binding charms, storm dispersal spells, and primitive versions of Protego-based hull wards, allowing them to outrun both navies and sea monsters. Some ships were partially charmed with early extension magic, appearing smaller or damaged to Muggle eyes. Treasure was rarely just gold. Pirate hordes often contained cursed objects, blood-bound locks, and map-based enchantments. Several historians believe early location-binding spells, ancestors of Fidelia-style concealment, were first tested on treasure maps that only revealed routes under specific conditions: moon phases, bloodlines, or spoken phrases. Sea magic itself evolved rapidly. Encounters with merfolk, grindylows, and krakens forced spell innovation. Many defensive aquatic charms taught today originate from pirate survival magic, not ministry research. Wizarding genealogical records also note that the notorious pirate Jack Sparrow belonged to an erratic but unusually powerful magical bloodline, traced forward through several obscure generations, that same line culminates in Gellert Grindelwald, a connection officially acknowledged as historically inconvenient, yet preserved in sealed archives due to consistent markers, charisma-linked spell affinity, artifact obsession, and chronic disregard for magical law. The chaos finally pushed wizarding authorities to act. Pirate-era magical leaks directly influenced stricter international cooperation after 1692, reinforcing the need for secrecy on a global scale. Pirates taught the wizarding world something terrifying. Magic doesn't need armies or empires, it just needs freedom to move. East African kingdoms. The rise of powerful Muggle civilization across East Africa, trade-based kingdoms, mountain societies, and later expanding empires directly shaped how magic evolved in the region now known as Uganda. Unlike Europe, East African Muggle societies developed in remote mountainous and celestial-aligned regions, particularly around the Rwenzori Mountains. This geography made traditional wand materials scarce and unreliable, forcing local witches and wizards to adapt. Over centuries, this necessity produced the world's most advanced tradition of wandless magic. As Muggle kingdoms expanded through trade routes and later colonial pressure intensified, secrecy became essential. Wizards learned to cast silently, invisibly, and without tools, a direct response to living alongside highly organized, watchful Muggle populations. This adaptation culminated in the founding of Uagadou, one of the oldest wizarding schools in the world, where magic was taught through gesture, astronomy, and bodily precision, rather than incantation. These methods later influenced global wizarding theory, especially advanced transfiguration, which the ministry still acknowledges as being rooted in African magical principles. East Africa proves a crucial wizarding truth. When Muggle civilization limits magic, wizardkind evolves beyond tools. Ancient China. Long before the International Statute of Secrecy from roughly 1600 BCE through 220 CE, Chinese wizarding society was deeply embedded inside Muggle China, especially during the Zhang, Zhou, and early Han dynasties. Unlike Europe, magic was not hidden, it was ritualized. Wizard alchemists, early precursors to European potion masters, pioneered elixir brewing, longevity draughts, and qi-based wandless magic. Centuries before similar practices reached the West, many scholars believe the Philosopher's Stone concept reached Europe through fragmented Chinese alchemical manuscripts. Lost during dynasty collapses. Chinese dragons were not beasts to be slain, but sentient magical beings tied to weather, rivers, and imperial authority. Wizards acted as mediators between dragons and emperors, stabilizing floods, droughts, and monsoons. Several natural disasters in Chinese records align suspiciously with dragon migration events. However, wizarding life became dangerous under Emperor Wu of Han, roughly 141 to 87 BCE. His obsession with immortality led to forced experimentation on magical families, mass confiscation of spellbooks, and executions when elixirs failed. This caused the first large-scale magical diaspora eastward and westward, indirectly influencing magic in Central Asia and Persia. China's greatest wizarding legacy wasn't domination, but control, balance, and internal magic, influencing wandless traditions still considered advanced even by modern Hogwarts scholars. The Roman Empire. The Roman Empire didn't fear magic, it wanted to control it. From the late Republic through the Imperial era, Rome actively recruited witches and wizards as engineers, healers, diviners, and battlefield assets. Early Roman infrastructure, roads, aqueducts, fortifications, shows strong evidence of repetitive levitation work, stone bonding charms, and large-scale enchantments embedded directly into construction. Wizard engineers were integrated into legions, reinforcing armor, enhancing siege weapons, and protecting formations. Many historians believe early shield charms evolved from Roman defensive tactics, blending disciplined formations with layered magical protection. As Rome expanded across Europe, North Africa, and the Middle East between 500 BC and 476 AD, it unintentionally reshaped spellcasting itself. Before Rome, magic varied wildly by region, relying on local dialects, gestures, and ritual phrasing. But as Latin became the empire's administrative and educational language, wizardkind adapted. Latin's precise grammar and structured commands made it ideal for controlled magical intent. This is why so many modern spells derive from Latin roots: lumos, leviosa, expelliarmus, wingardium leviosa. Magic became portable, teachable, and recordable. But Rome's strength became its danger. By the 1st century, century CE, magic users were registered, taxed, and conscripted. Knowledge was cataloged and weaponized. Uncooperative practitioners were branded unstable and eliminated. Wizards lost autonomy. When the Western Empire collapsed in 476 AD, magical infrastructure collapsed with it. Spell libraries burned. Artifacts vanished. Wizards scattered across Britain, Gaul, and the East. Ironically, Rome's fall freed European magic, allowing localized traditions to evolve, directly leading to the fragmented clan-based wizarding cultures of the medieval world. Rome taught wizardkind a lasting truth. Magic gains power when standardized, but freedom when control collapses. Early modern Europe. Between the late 15th and mid-18th centuries, European wizarding society nearly collapsed. What Muggles remember as hysteria was, in truth, the violent collision between uncontrolled magic and rising centralized authority. From 1484 onward, papal bulls like Summis Desiderantes Affectibus legitimized witch hunts. Magical families were exposed by neighbors, rivals, or accidental spellwork. Ironically, many executed witches survived protected by basic flame freezing charms, laughing through burning while reinforcing Muggle disbelief. But not all survived. Wandless practitioners, potion makers, and rural witches without formal magical training were captured, drowned, tortured, or erased entirely. Entire bloodlines vanished. This era produced the wizarding world's deepest scar, fear of exposure. In 1692, the Salem witch trials confirmed the nightmare had crossed the Atlantic. Wizarding leaders realized secrecy was no longer optional, it was survival. The result was the International Statute of Secrecy, 1692, a global magical withdrawal from Muggle society. Magic went underground, schools became fortified, spell usage became regulated. The witch trials didn't just traumatize wizardkind, they ended the age of shared history between magic and Muggles forever. Ancient Egypt. Long before Hogwarts, Ancient Egypt was one of the first civilizations where magic and Muggle society fully overlapped, violently and deliberately, from roughly 2600 to 1000 BCE. Egyptian wizardkind was not hidden. They were enslaved, conscripted, and ritualized by priest-kings who understood just enough magic to weaponize it. The construction of the pyramids is the clearest example. Wizarding records, later sealed by the ministry, describe thousands of witches and wizards forced to perform repetitive levitation charms. Primitive variants of Wingardium Leviosa to raise multi-ton stone blocks day after day. The scale was so extreme that it caused permanent magical exhaustion and early deaths, one of the first recorded cases of mass magical burnout. Egypt's obsession with the afterlife pushed magic even further. Soul anchoring, preservation rituals, and funerary enchantments were obsessively refined. Many historians believe these experiments laid the theoretical groundwork for Horcrux magic, even if the Egyptians never perfected true soul splitting. Embalming spells, protective curses, and tomb wards directly influenced later dark magic classification. By 1000 BCE, wizard rebellions and catastrophic ritual failures forced surviving Egyptian witches and wizards underground. Their knowledge didn't vanish, it scattered across Europe and the Mediterranean, and to this day the ministry refuses to acknowledge that modern dark magic owes some of its roots to Egypt's obsession with eternal life. Norse civilization. The wizarding world's defensive and protective magic was fundamentally reshaped by the magical culture of the Norse civilization during the Viking Age, circa 800 to 1100 AD. This was not elegant spell casting, it was magic built to endure war, climate, and time itself. Norse witches and wizards pioneered true rune magic, spells permanently carved into stone, wood, metal, and architecture. Unlike wand-based spells, runes didn't fade, they persisted, acting as magical batteries. This innovation directly influenced modern ward theory, including the layered protections used at Hogwarts and ancient wizarding strongholds across Europe. Whether magic reached unprecedented sophistication, Norse magical seafarers used wind-binding runes, sea-calming enchantments, and illusion fogs to survive transcontinental voyages. Many Viking expansions recorded by Muggle historians coincided with periods of unusual navigational success, later traced to magical guidance systems etched directly into ships. This era also reframed magic as collective defense. Entire settlements were warded together, creating early versions of community-wide shield networks, a concept the Ministry of Magic still relies on during large-scale emergencies. As Christianity spread after 1000 AD, Norse wizardkind adapted brilliantly. Magic was hidden inside myth, poetry, and symbols, ensuring survival without exposure. The Norse taught wizardkind a core truth: magic that protects civilization outlives magic that conquers it. Mayan civilization. The wizarding world understanding of time, astronomy, and cyclical magic was profoundly shaped by the Mayan civilization, which flourished for over 3,000 years, from around 2000 BC until the final city fell in 1697 AD. Mayan witches and wizards were among the most advanced celestial magic specialists in history. Their observatories, such as El Caracol, were purely astronomical. They were magically calibrated structures designed to align spellwork with planetary cycles. Certain charms, divination rituals, and long-term enchantments were cast only during precise celestial windows. Many wizarding historians believe this is where Centaur star lore ultimately traces its roots. While centaurs later isolated themselves in Europe, their obsessive focus on planetary movement, prophecy timing, and celestial patterns mirrors Mayan cycle-based magic almost perfectly, suggesting ancient cross-continental knowledge exchange long before modern wizarding borders existed. This civilization pioneered temporal mapping, not time travel, but something far more subtle, predicting magical probability cycles. Their famous calendars weren't about the end of the world, they tracked when magic surged, weakened, or destabilized. Modern unspeakables still reference Mayan cycle theory when studying temporal anomalies and prophecy convergence. Unlike European wizarding cultures, Mayan magic favored ritual spell casting over incantations. Magic was layered through symbols, movement, rhythm, and timing, influencing later ritual-based magic used in protective ceremonies and long-term enchantments. When Spanish conquest began in the 16th century, Mayan wizardkind went fully underground, hiding magic within glyphs and architecture. Entire spell systems were preserved inside stone, unreadable to non-magical eyes. Medieval alchemists. Between the 12th and 15th centuries, alchemy exploded across Europe and the Middle East, and for the wizarding world, this era was a deliberate infiltration. Wizards didn't hide from Muggles, they misled them. Alchemists weren't all frauds, many were squibs, magical collaborators, or wizards working under disguise. This period refined transmutation theory, potion stabilization, and material-based magic, direct ancestors of modern potions and transfiguration principles, led to gold experiments taught magical equivalence laws still taught today. At the center stands Nicholas Flamel. His success with the Philosopher's Stone forced wizarding authorities to act. Immortality couldn't become replicable, so the wizarding world engineered confusion, fake symbols, dead ends, mystical language. Alchemy became symbolic, not practical. Socially, this deception worked. Muggles chased metaphors. Wizards quietly perfected reality. Many spells involving material permanence, magical catalysts, and potion longevity originate here. When alchemy faded from Muggle science, wizarding alchemy didn't disappear. It went underground, regulated, and rare. That's why true alchemical mastery is almost extinct. Alchemy taught wizardkind a dangerous lesson. Some knowledge is safest when people think it doesn't work. Medieval France. The transformation of France from ancient Gaul into a centralized medieval state profoundly reshaped European wizarding culture. Early Gaelic Muggle societies lived alongside druids and magical practitioners, allowing magic to remain semi-visible until Roman conquest in the 1st century BC. As France evolved into a powerful bureaucratic monarchy, Muggle authority expanded into education, religion, and law, forcing wizardkind to reorganize. Magic could no longer be raw or spontaneous, it had to be controlled, refined, and concealed. This pressure directly influenced the founding of Beauxbatons, Academy of Magic, which emphasized precision spellcasting, emotional discipline, and magical restraint. French wizarding philosophy prioritized consistency over brute power, shaping modern charm theory, potion stabilization, and international magical etiquette. France's role as a diplomatic Muggle power also affected wizarding politics. French magical scholars helped standardize conduct laws that later fed into international agreements, including early frameworks that inspired the International Statute of Secrecy 1692. France taught the wizarding world a lasting lesson. When Muggles centralize power, magic must become elegant, disciplined, and discreet. Okay, you want to see how all 12 Muggle events affected the wizarding world, including the moon landing? That's your next lesson here at Stickman Hogwarts. Dobby is waiting. Watch now before he snaps his fingers and you end up with cake on your face.